All right, here we are. Hey, we're going to take just a minute. First of all, I want to welcome you to Sessions with Sam, but I also want to call out Evil Act 47. I may be saying that wrong. Passed the Solutions Architect exam. Congratulations. That's a hard test. It's a hard certification. I'm proud of you. Good job. And keep going. I remember taking that and the developers and yeah, just keep going. Love it. So, welcome to Sessions with Sam. I'm glad you're here. You'll notice that I've got my Serverless for Everyone shirt on. I've got my Serverless for Everyone Yeti. I've got my Dr. Pepper. We're good to go. It must be time for Sessions with Sam. First of all, I also want to say I have more than one of these. You may be saying, man, he wears that same shirt a lot, which is true, I do. And my wife is not real crazy about that. But I have more than one of these, so I'm just throwing that out. All right. Yes, keep going towards Solutions Architect Pro. That's awesome. So today we're going to be talking about SQS, which is Simple Queue Service. I went blank there. You ever do that? It's Amazon Simple Queue Service, and it's the ability. If you think about when we're tying applications together and our pieces of our service together, this one allows you to connect them through a queue. You can queue things up. You've got different options, like you have what's called a FIFO queue, which is a first in, first out, so it keeps order. Or you can have it where just as they go in, they come out. And the way SQS works, and this is going to be important as we're kind of building this out, is you have multiple servers that it's going to the data is going to be across, right? And so there's different ways of polling. You can do a short poll and a long poll, and we'll kind of get into that. So let's go ahead and start building this out. And hopefully today what we're going to build is we're going to build a queue. We're going to build a dead letter queue for it to push stuff out to, and I'll explain that. And we're going to build a function that's triggered off that queue. So with that, let's get started and jump in here. My man Rob Sutter is not here today. He had a conflict. He's using my moderator, but guess who stepped in? My man Chris Munns. Chris Munns, shout out to you. I appreciate you being here. He's also my boss. He's a great guy. He is the serverless guru. So I learn every day from him. So let's get started. I've said that several times now. All right, so first thing we're going to do here, we've got our template up, and we've got it. We've got our format version, we've got our transform, so we can say this is a serverless template, and then we've got our description, just simple, obviously SQS. Now the first thing I'm going to do, we are going to have a function in here. So even if I have one function, I tend to use globals, okay? I tend to set some of the things that I'm going to use all the time in my functions. So my global section for my function, every function I put in here is going to have a 5-second timeout. It's going to have a code URI under my source folder, and it's going to have a runtime of Node.js 12. Okay, that's just a real quick way if I'm starting applications that I know every node's going to be, or every function's going to be that way. I can override that at the function level if I need to. So I can say timeout of 10 seconds in the actual function, and that will be respected versus what's in the globals. So if you're not using the globals, I really encourage you to. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start building our resources. This is going to be one of the simpler templates that we build. Going here, look at that, I type straight in. That's always a risk for me. So, bear with me. I expect y'all out there, Munns, this is your job. You have to watch my spelling. And I know you have to. That's funny because you have to do that on a regular basis. If nothing else, it'll be uppercase Lambda here and we'll kill it. So, alrighty. So the next thing we're going to do is, like I said, we've got our resources. And we're going to create one very simple resource, and that's called a dead letter. Okay, the dead letter is just my logical name. So this is my dead letter queue, and it's a type of AWS SQS queue. And that's all I need to actually create an SQS queue, is just this one little thing. Now, there are more settings we can do. We'll do that on our next queue. But in this one, I'm just keeping it real simple. This will actually generate our first SQS queue. Okay, so the second one we're going to do, and I am going to live type on some of this here, is we're going to create what I'm calling my raw queue. Okay, and you can name these however you want, but this is my raw queue, and this is the queue we're kind of going to work with our raw data. Again, it's going to be the same type, which is AWS SQS queue. Okay, so we're verifying the spelling on that. Okay. All right, hey, Barney Parker, welcome. Okay, you don't see code. Good job. Thank you for calling that out, Chris Munns. Here it is. There we go. All right, so let me come back here and say this again. Here's what we create. Here's our initial one. Here's the globals that I put in that I was talking about. And here's the resource. The first resource I'm building is the dead letter queue, which is just a simple type AWS SQS queue. And now I'm starting to build out the raw queue. Thanks for calling that out, Chris. And that is much better. Running your own stream. I'm not particularly smart, so there's the battle right there. So, all right. So we're going to set it to a type of queue so it knows what to build. Then we're going to add some properties to this one. Now, we're not going to use all the properties available, but I do want to talk through them real quick so you understand what they can do, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the delay seconds, okay? And we're going to set this to be 0. Okay. Now, what the delay seconds do is they say it's the time for which the delivery of all the messages in the queue is delayed. So I can say once it hits there, let's put a space in there. Once my message hits there, I want it to delay. I want it to sit there for a while before it becomes active. And this is helpful if you're trying to kind of protect downstream resources that maybe can't handle as much. So you could say, something should sit in there for 20 seconds or 15 minutes, in order before this goes anywhere, okay? And it can actually sit in there for up to 15 minutes, okay? So that's the delay seconds. So the next thing, now I'm setting that to 0, and it will actually, if I leave this out, it will actually default to 0, okay? Now, we have this option called FIFO queue. Okay, and what I can do is I can go, and I spelled Q wrong, Queuue, and all I have to do is say true or false on this. Now remember earlier I said there's a thing called a FIFO queue, and the FIFO queue is first in, first out, and it maintains order. Okay, so that's an important thing. If you think you need to maintain order in your queue, that you can set this up. Okay. Remember that, FIFO, that's right, okay? Yes, throw back to, so if you took the test, we're gonna talk about something that is generally on the Solutions Architect test, and that's gonna be the visibility timeout, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I wanna talk about a couple things. If you set the FIFO queue, then the one thing you also have to do is you have to set the name, okay? So we're gonna go in here and we're gonna set a name, and then and it's actually it's called queue name is the resource, so queue name. And if I use FIFO, it needs to be my name, okay, whatever one, but it has to end in .FIFO. Okay, so that's something to understand. So if you're using that, you have to use the .FIFO ending in order to make that happen. Yes, thank you. Thank you for popping in there. And I have a whole series of documents. Let's go ahead and throw those in real quick here. Okay, there we go. So let's talk about long pollings, dead letter queues. Looks like we had it didn't go in there right, but you can grab the link there. Okay, so those are some different links that might be helpful. Okay, so using the queue name here. The other thing that you can do, you don't have to do, is there's a parameter. I'm going to copy this because I won't get this right in doing this. Is I can actually go in here and I can set a content-based deduplication. This only works with FIFO, and you can put true or false, okay? So what this does, this says I'm gonna treat matching content as duplications and I'm gonna dedupe it. Okay, so you can actually make that where, I want to keep it clean, so that helps the idempotent of your application where you're not getting duplications in there, especially in order. So very helpful on that. Okay. So now that we've said all this and kind of talked about the FIFO, we're not actually going to use these. So let's go ahead and comment those out. We're not going to build a FIFO queue for this example, but I wanted you to know how to if you needed to, because, in SAM, that we want to know how to build that out. Okay. So the next couple things we're going to drop in here, and I'm just going to copy these real quick. Okay. Is I have a parameter called the KMS data key reuse period seconds. This tells me how long can I use my KMS key if I'm going to use a KMS to encrypt this, okay? So I can set this to say, I want you to use, let's just use it for 5 seconds, then I want you to rotate it. Okay. The other thing I have is my master key ID, and that might be something like AWS, KMS. Let's SQS, something like that. Okay, we're not going to do the encryption on this, but this is how you set that if you need to, so you can set those up. So we'll actually go ahead and just for now comment those out as well. Comment, not tab. Okay, there we go. All righty. So then we're going to, okay, now here's a couple things that we may want to set if you're using queues. So let's say you need to protect your down service, your downstream service, and you can only handle so much kilobytes, okay, or size of your package. In this, you can actually set the package size. You can say, this is the maximum package size that I'm willing to accept, okay? You can go anywhere up to 256K. All right, and that's the limit on this. So let's say you say, I just want, and it can be done it's done in bytes. So we'll say 1 kilobyte to, and if we say, hang on a second here, we can actually say something like this, and that'll be 256K. So that's a way to say, here's the maximum message size that we want in there. So we're going to block that out for the moment. Okay. Now earlier I said you can use a queue name here. I can do a queue name even if I don't have a FIFO. But here's a best practice when you're doing SAM. Okay. So when I'm using infrastructure as code, I tend to let CloudFormation name my resources, and the reason for that is it's going to generate unique names, and I don't have to worry about stomping on things, or anything like that. So I let CloudFormation name my resources. So real quick, we're going to take a quick moment here and look at some of the questions we've got coming in real quick here. All right, CloudFormation SQS syntax. Thank you, Chris. Which again works in SAM just the same. Yes. It looks like Chris is on the ball. Best practice alert. That's right. CloudFormation name. That's right. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to switch back to code so that you can actually see my code. All right, got it. Excellent. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do. So we're not going to put a queue name in there, as we said, but we are going to say, how long do I want my messages to be retained? Okay, so what this means is if I put a message in, it can try to, and wherever target I have my SQS going, triggering a Lambda, reading from it, pulling from it, something like that. I can say, this is how long it should stay in there. And if it doesn't get taken care of in 20 minutes, 4 hours, something like that. Now, what you're looking at for the limits on that, real quick here, it can be from 60 seconds up to 14 days. So you can have something sit out there for 14 days. So I can actually say, okay, I want to do this real quick. I'm going to say sit here for 14 days. So I'm going to declare that in seconds, right? So that means that when I push stuff in there, if it doesn't get used, it will actually stay in there for 14 days before it goes to the dead letter queue. Okay, so let's actually talk about the dead letter queue. Okay, and the dead letter queue is handled in what we call our retry policy. Okay, a Reardrive policy. I'm sorry, my bad. So the Reardrive policy says several things. First of all, it says, give me a dead letter target ARN, which I'm actually grabbing using the getAt pseudo function. I'm grabbing dead letter ARN up here. Okay, and I'm saying how many times should a message be put back into the queue. So if you think about the way this works, I have an external source dropping messages into the queue, okay? And then it's going to trigger a Lambda to do some work on that. If the Lambda returns a 200, it will be removed from the queue. If the Lambda returns something else, it will be put back into the queue and made active after a certain amount of time. We'll talk about that in a minute, okay? So what I want to say is I want it to only be put back into the queue 4 times before I say, let's drop it into a dead letter queue. Okay, so you have some control of this. I can say 14 times. I can, if I don't put anything, I can set 300 times. So what you're looking at is a match of what's hit first, the max retention period or the max receive count. So there you go. All right, looks like we've got you'd want to look at CloudWatch events. Okay, right on. Chris is on it. I don't need to jump in it. Thank you very much. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and set this back to 4. Leave it there. Okay, I'm going to throw some tags on here. As I've been doing these, I haven't been tagging them, and I was thinking, boy, it'd be an easy way to find any resources that I'm doing for sessions with Sam by tagging those resources. So I'm putting the key, sessions with Sam, the value of SQS. So I might look for, or I'm actually probably a better way to do that is to do episode or series. Okay. And we'll say sessions with Sam. So I can look for anything with the series session with Sam. All righty, Chris is on it. Okay. Any other questions? He's got that going. So the last thing we're going to talk about is the visibility timeout. And what does that mean? Okay. So we're going to put in here, and we're going to set a visibility timeout of 60 seconds. Okay. So what this does is this says, when I put a message in, when it's grabbed, let's say it triggers a Lambda, and then it gets put, it's going to actually be in a visibility timeout for 60 seconds. So that Lambda has 60 seconds to work on it. Okay, let's say it's a longer running process. You're doing a lot more, okay? So what I can do is, let's bump that up to 120 seconds. Let's go 2 minutes. And what that allows you to do is to help control the same message being read more than once by your system and kind of help keep your data clean, and that helps your idempotency of your application. All right, so visibility timeout, and I remember this in the solutions architect test, right? It might have been the developer's test, coming across as like, I don't get this, I don't understand it. That's what it means, okay? So working through that. All right, Chris Monge, which linters am I using? I am using, I don't know what linter I'm using. I'm using YAML, and my plugins. I'll be glad to share that in a link, but I do have a YAML linter that's helping me keep this clean. So, and of course the AWS stuff. So, all right, so that builds out our queue. Okay, so we can actually at this point, let's go ahead and deploy this. Sam, deploy, and I'm going to do a -G because remember this is my first time I'm deploying it, so I want to do a guided deploy to set some values. Okay. And it is not there because I'm not in the folder. So let's do that. Okay. All right. Now I'm in there. The other thing I always forget to do is I'm going to turn on my profile. Remember, I use this ASP extension to keep me from pushing to the wrong account. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, and we're going to go SAM deploy -G. And I'm going to push that, and I'm going to call the stack name. Let's go SWS SQS, like so. Okay, so sessions with Sam, SQS. I'm in the US West region, Y'all watching my typing? I actually typed region. How you doing? All right, US West region. This is why I can't talk when I'm typing my password, because I'll say it out loud. All right, okay. Everything else, all I'm saying here is I don't need to confirm the changes before I deploy. I'm gonna allow SAM CLI to create the roles that I need, and I'm gonna save arguments to the same config file. And now we are deploying, and we'll see what happens there. Okay. Rock and roll, that's right. Hey, this is a good sign. So we got what we've gotten by so far is we've gotten by, we're doing the change set, and now it's actually deploying. Okay. So I've got a retention period. I've got, what did I do here? Oh, yeah. Hey, how's it going? So that's not a number. That's a number. Okay. There we go. My bad. And I'm actually not going to set the retention period, so we're just going to block that out for now. But so here's what I need to do. So because I've got a little hiccup there in that, I'm going to go ahead and clear that out of my Twitter feed there. I'm going to go ahead and clear that out of my account. So I'm going to go into my AWS account real quick here, and we're going to sign in. And actually, I'm going to go back to, you just see me for the moment, and let me set this up real quick here. Okay. Didn't think I'd need this. That was my bad. Please forgive me. Chris, be proud of me that I changed the screen. I'm just saying there. I'm proud of that. Okay, so what I'm doing in the CloudFormation is I'm just going back in and I'm going to delete that. I can do this from CLI as well, but it'd take me longer. I don't know the CLI command offhand. Once it's in a rollback on a new deploy, it's not going to be able to deploy that. So now that I've got that, it's in deleting status, so I can go ahead and run this again without issues. So let's pop back over there. And font-wise, are we big enough? I know we're halfway through, but are we big enough there? Alrighty. Oh, nope, I don't want to do the deploy again. I don't need to do the G because it's already saved. So everything I need is there. So we're going to go ahead and push this. I can see fine. Good. All right. Thanks, Mohib. All right. All right. So while that's deploying, because we only have 10 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and pull in the one last thing we're going to do. Or a couple things, actually. I'm going to pull in our function and some outputs. Okay. All right, so we successfully deployed. That's a good thing. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a function, and I want to show you how that's lined up. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to trigger the function based on this queue. And this is a pretty straightforward one. This is an event resource or event source, I'm sorry. And so we're going to go into our event. I'm going to set the SQS event. And that's just a logical name. I can call that anything I want. The type is SQS. And for the properties, I'm going to give it a queue name. And this is one of those you can actually do a queue that's already existing. And what happens? It's going to say I'm going to run every time the queue triggers. It's going to trigger this Lambda, and I'm going to grab a batch of 10 if they're available. Okay, and I'm going to go to enable true. So I want this. So that means I can turn it off and on as I need. All right. So one other thing that I think, yeah, there we go. Okay, so. Yes, there's one thing that I did not talk about, and I want to talk about this real quick here. Okay, so there is a function there's a parameter on the queue. Okay, we're not going to put it in, but I do want you to see it so you understand it. Okay, and that's called the retention or receive message wait time seconds. Okay, now remember, when we're talking about this is where we decide whether we want long pull or short pull. If I put a 0, it's going to be a short pull. And what that means is it's when SQS is running, it's going to pull several. It's going to get a sampling of information from several of the different servers, but not all of them. Okay, and it's going to grab those and do the messages. Now, if I set this out to a long pull, it's going to pull all of them for up to 10 seconds. Now, a short pull, even if there's no events, it's still going to fire that Lambda. Okay, it's just going to be pull, fire, pull, fire, pull, fire. Okay, now, if you set this out, what you can say is, I'm going to let you wait 10 seconds for some events to appear. And then if they're not there, it'll still fire. But this gives you the ability to slow that down, okay? And it saves you time, or it saves you some money as well on how many times you're triggering that Lambda. There's no reason to trigger the Lambda if you don't need it, okay? We're not going to set that at the moment, but that's something to understand when you're doing short pull and long pull. And I think I put that in the comments, but I think the URL may have got messed up. So hopefully one of the folks have either put one or can put a link to understanding short and long pull. All right. Okay, so we've got our triggered function, we've got our queue. So what we're going to do here in the time that we've got is I'm going to go and I'm going to redeploy this real quick with the function, so I can get. You'll notice, I redeployed without putting it in. Let's put it in there real quick. I want to get some outputs. Now, luckily, the deploy happens pretty fast, so we can do this pretty quick. However, YAML does not pace friendly. There we go. So the outputs are me the ability to get stuff out of the template as I need it. So I can actually I want to know the raw SQS URL, because I can get a direct URL to the SQS queue that I can push with a get or a post. Okay, and I'm going to do the same with the dead letter, although we may not use it. So we'll go ahead and deploy this one more time once that's done. Okay. And then while that's waiting, I'm going to pop in our policy. Now, when I hit this from outside, I'm using my AWS credentials, and I'll show them. Let's actually drop into Postman real quick here. Okay, and we're going to grab. I need to deploy it to get the URL. So let me drop this in while we're watching. Yes, success. That's always a good thing. All right, so let's go ahead and grab the policy and talk about it real quick. So a queue policy, because I'm in Postman, I'm going to use my credentials. My credentials in this account, this particular demo account, are admin. So I'm always going to be able to push stuff to this demo. Okay. Now let me show you what I mean by that. Okay. So here is the URL we want. Okay. So I'm going to go over to Postman and grab it up here. There we go. Oh. Postman has shut down. Let's reopen it and blow it up a little bit. Okay, so I have in here one request, and in here I've set the credentials. Now I'm not going to show those specifically because I'm not going to share my credentials, but if I go in here and I look at authorize, if I edit and I go to authorize, I can actually choose the ability to do an AWS signature. Okay, and so this is going to use my credentials just like I do in the AWS CLI and sign this request. Okay, so let's paste this new URL here. Make sure I got that. Looks like I pasted the same. Nope, that's the same. So now I'm going to send this. Okay, and I was able to send a message, and here's the message ID. Everything's good. Now here's my other account. Okay, this is another account with the same access. Let's see what happens there. Okay, and that posted. Oh, did I? You know what? I don't think I changed the URL. 1 second, real quick here. Okay, value copy. All right. So we're gonna paste this in one more time. No, that looks to be the same. There we go. Oh, that's where it is. That's where it is. My bad, went back to the same. Okay, so I'm using the other account. I'm gonna hit send, and I don't have access to this, okay? So I can't do this cross account. Now, how do I fix that? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into our raw or our queue policy, which I call raw queue policy. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. I'm just gonna show you a couple. But in the links that I posted, there's a link to a lot of different examples on this. So first of all, we're going to walk through, and this looks like a normal IAM policy if you've seen it. This is a resource policy, okay? So I've got an ID and my version, and here's my statement. I'm going to say I'm going to allow SQS send message. That's all I'm doing is an action of send message, okay? And I'll show that in Postman in just a minute. The resource, I want it to have access to the raw queue.arn, okay? And in the queue, I need to do that as well. I don't need dead letter because I'm not going to push that. But so these are the queues it's going to apply to and in the resource that I'm allowing it to, okay? For my principal, and this is a throwaway account, so I'm okay if you're seeing that right now. I can either choose the account, I can say everybody in the account can do this, or I can actually get real specific to a user or a role. You have a lot of control over this. Thank you, Chris Munns. You have a lot of control over this, and you can get really granular. I can even conditionally say it has to be between, yesterday or let's say tomorrow. Okay, so I can get real granular on the conditions. Okay, so now when I push this, let's go ahead and redeploy this. And it's going to create this policy that says, hey, you have access to it. Okay, and now the function itself, because I'm getting triggered by the event, it's creating, that permission's being set up as well. Okay, so Sam in the background is saying, hey, you have permission to grab those. All right, so that went out. So now, let's go back to Postman. Let's go to my other account, make sure I'm on that. Let's do a send and see what happens. There you go. I love it when it works. So what we've done here, just kind of a recap, is we have built, I told you I would show you, to do this from Postman to set this up. In the body, all I'm doing, and it's actually a XWW form URL encoded, I'm passing a message body, that's required, just my message text, an expiration on it, a version, so that's the version of the SQS, and then an action. This is really important. So I said the action that I wanted to be able to do is send message. So that's the send message. If I were to try anything else here, it wouldn't work because again, like I've been harping on for the last several sessions, is we keep our policies granular. Yes, I could do the whole account, but instead I'm going straight to the user and I'm only giving me a window of this long to work in that. And you can put all kinds of things together, regions, organizations, IPs, things like that. You can blacklist, whitelist, do all kinds of stuff here. So a lot of power in the resource policy. So let's do a quick review. We built a normal template. We've got our globals function. You know what? Here's one thing we didn't do while we've got a few minutes. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do SAM logs, and then stack name is actually SWS SQS. Now if you remember here, this allows me to tail the log. Okay, so as things are hitting it, so it's going to read the log, and you can see that Lambda has been triggering. In fact, let's send a couple more real quick so you can kind of see that in action. So we'll send a couple here, we'll go crazy. Okay, and we'll go back. And if we watch this for a second, you'll see this. It might be kind of hard to tell if you watch the time frame, but there it goes. You'll see it start popping up. Okay. So real quick, I'm gonna look in here, see if we have any questions that haven't been answered. Always trick thing when we've run into making sure your Lambda timeout isn't greater than the visibility. Yep, that's true. Very true. All right. Well, we are at time. So real quick, like I said, I'm going to do a review and then we're going to push this. Okay. So we built our globals for our functions. We always use the global when we, just makes life easier. We got our resources, the dead letter queue. So what happens, I explained what happens when it's going to go to a dead letter queue. The queue that we're actually using for our data to be sent in, and we can send it from all kinds of different places. We got the policy that allows our functions or allows people to shoot it from other accounts. We're saying, hey, who can actually push to this, right? We did some examples with conditional timing as well as account versus user. And then finally, we have the function itself that's running that. And then we put some outputs so that we can get to that. And that's the SAM template, folks. So real quick, we're going to do this while we're live. So we're going to say get status, see where we're at here. And we're going to push this so you have it. Now, if you remember, so we're going to add those in. If you remember, we have a repo that I've posted. It's GitHub single digit / and I'll show it in just a minute, but this is going to be live in just a moment. So we're going to go git commit am added SQS and we're going to push. Okay. And there we go. It is live for you. And let me show you where that's live. So we're going to go right to the ending screen here and it has my information. So you can get to the repo at slip.link /SWS. Next week, we're going to be talking about safe deploys with Lambda. So how to configure that in a SAM template. And what that means is, using one Lambda to test another before it goes out to the public. If you need more serverless, tomorrow we have serverless coffee chat with Ran Ribbenzaft. And that's James Beswick who's hosting that. And you can see there at twitter.com, jbeswick. Man, I'm glad you joined this session with Sam. I hope you have a good day. Stay safe, stay healthy.